Hey, my bodacious boogie buddies. Today, Volkmar in bondage. So, the plan is to put about 7 out of 10 troll power into this guy. I want him to look good, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time on him. The overall composition will be want Volkmar to kind of have a warm idea to him, keep him more in the red tones, and then cooler tones with the demon. And so I'll set that with some undershades or some undertones, under primes maybe, and then I'll highlight that up and then do the classic oil wash contrast combo and then highlight them up. Let's get to it. So here we are after the zenithal prime. The first step here is to lay down the red tones. I'm going to use some Molotov. Name doesn't matter, but it seems ink like for pens. So put that over the prime, and now the green color for the Jade Eagle. You'll notice here that I overspray it pretty bad on his right arm, but we fix that at a later stage. And then I'm going to highlight up with some flesh color ink and then some white. Now we are to the oil wash stage. I just hit magenta on the face. You can see that dabbing it here, and then I do some Payne's gray on a lot of the metal area, but primarily the chain. So just trying to set the tones, and then while it's still wet, I don't let it set a whole lot. I clean it up. So nice little Q-tip to the dome, and now makeup sponge. So right about now, I decide I need to slap chop him. So I varnish him and dry brush with a pale tone to set the colors better for the express paint. And here he is after a thorough dry brush. Now we go on to express color. So this Black Lotus, Cardinal Purple, and Copper Brown. The Black Lotus is a great color to set some non-metallic metal or true metallic metal tones that you want to have a little bluish tint. I used the Cardinal Purple for the cloak, and then the Copper Brown for the gold and leather parts, as well as the boots and the trim. Then I used the flesh color for the face and a dark green, I believe it was an orc skin, for the Jade Eagle. All of this is sped up, since I can't think of a worse thing to do than just watch base coating or speed paint application. It was very glossy, so I had to satin varnish him at this point. And here we go. Here he is, ready for highlights. So all the colors on the model are set, and if you're a glutton for punishment, you can attempt to paint the eyes. And a pro tip here, paint your eyes first. Don't wait till the model's mostly done to try painting eyes. That is a recipe for disaster. So I've set the undertones of the skin, but I have all the skin tones that I'm going to be using on hand here, and I start with the eyes. And you can see here I do a pretty good job of dotting the white, but I want Volkmar here to be a little bug-eyed and his eyes popping out. He's not in a good way, so I need to bump that up. Need to do maybe a little extra white, broaden it up a little bit, which isn't a problem now, because if I make a mistake, like I probably did just there, a little too big, but I'd rather go back in and cut it back. Use some darker tone, cut it back. I can use a little bit of a red tone too to set some more color, some more interest to it, and I don't have to be afraid about making mistakes. So, good pro tip here. Second, I take some black now and I'm going to dot the irises. And again, I mess up. It's too big, especially his right eye, our left eye looking here. I come back in, dot it with some white, and I mess that up too. It's a little off, but I'm just ranging it in, trying to get the effect I'm looking for. So now I can clean it up. I'm pretty happy with where the eyes are, and I can start the highlight process. So this is Advanced Flesh Tone, the new character series by Monument Hobbies. So I'm just playing with this a little bit. It's my first time trying it out. And I'm just going to cut back in and try to get the eyelids, the upper and lower eyelid around the eye, and just sharpen this up. And also set my base tone here. A little bit of work on top of the dome. You'll see I lay the brightest point, or the spot I feel like the light is going to be, and I leave the darker tones. I come back through and broaden the area. I'm trying to get more or less 90% of the skin tone covered with this base tone. And so I don't try to do it all in one go. I set the main points, check it, come back, add more in. And that dark tone is a little too big, but I'll come back in and tighten it back up. It's important here to not try to do anything that's a focal point in one go. Work slow, broaden it out as you go. You can see the same thing on the left side of his head, his left side. Bring the highlight back down towards the base. Get that cheekbone, the ear. Just re-establishing those tones and covering more than I think I should, but just double checking it before I do. And now I've covered up quite a significant portion of that undertone, but still with some of that visual interest below. Here we are getting his chin. At first I feel like he has a big cleft chin, but decide against it and cut that away. His nose is going to catch a lot of the light. And here we go. That dark spot was a little too big, so I cut it back in. Bye-bye cleft. And now I pick out his teeth since I have white on hand. You can still see some of that magenta from the oil wash in there. And same with the eyes. Can cut it back, cut back any mistakes. And now get on to the sweet, sweet eyebrows on this guy. I went for white color, mostly to help him stand out, but this guy, I imagine, is like an old biker dude, so he's got to have white hair. And here he is with all the skin highlighted up. It's a mix of sunny skin tone, that advanced flesh tone, and elfric flesh. You really lost focus on the footage, and so here's just the finished result. Same thing here, I added in more tones. There's more color to his face, like his cheekbones. Also picked out the individual teeth, but adding more red around his eyes, a bit more blue-gray around his nose. A little close-up of him here, get an idea of where I placed the color. Here are all the colors I used. Obviously the main three being the three in the middle. And non-metallic metal steel. Just going to use a mix of those two colors, adding more and more ivory as I go. And to start out, about 50-50 mix of both. I'm just going to trace a line around all the edges of the metal. I'm going to pay a little bit of attention to where the two highlights would be. We have the primary highlight that's closer to the light source, and the secondary highlight that's going to reflect more towards the bottom of the surface. But like on these plates, I'm just going to trace a line around that inside edge, and then below towards his armpit, and then up by that bracer. Over here, you can kind of see me do it. It does get a little blurry, but I trace that top line along the top. I'll hit the bottom here in a second, but on this breastplate, I hit the trim, I hit the top for the primary reflection, and then a little dot down here for the secondary reflection. And I'm just trying to cover all those surfaces here. On these, this lower breastplate does have some nice filigree, and I'm just trying to think of the shape as a whole, but then you still want to pick out all the edges of the filigree. It does get blurry here, but imagine, and in some ways it kind of helps see the shape and kind of where I'm placing these highlights. That right there is some chainmail. I'm just trying to dot all the little surfaces of it, that again, primary and secondary reflections. Here you can get an idea of what I just did, and not blurry form. Now I'm just going to come back in with some more ivory. I'm just going to ping little dots, little highlighted surfaces. Just find the brightest points. This is where you want to live more in the primary highlight area, and just dot, dot, just ping there. Just ping it, and this is what sells the metal. So we're here on this other part of his breastplate, just ping the corners. A little bit on that secondary reflection, just ping the top, ping, ping, dot, and now it looks like metal. Come back in at a later stage and add some secondary colors, some lower light reflections that'll help sell this more. But in the undertones and the express paint, and then two highlights, it's a fairly convincing steel effect. Now we move on to the gold. So the gold is a similar type of idea with just the three colors. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of that warm brown and the ochre, and I'm just going to start placing the first highlight. And with this, like his belt in a cylinder that's facing the light, it's going to have mostly a band, and I'm going to do it around the slightly to the right side to where the light would be. So I'm going to paint a little bit heavier on this crown design, and then to the right side of the crest of it, I'm just going to imagine that there's a band of light that goes down there, but because of the design there, you have to play with it a little bit differently. But we're just trying to trace the outline, be a little bit heavier on the right side, and just block it out. So that there that I'm placing would be the secondary highlight. It would be to the left side. So we have a brighter band, a little bit darker band, and then a brighter band again. And then on this side, I'm just going to trace or draw along the outline, draw along the edges. So just hit those, and then another, we'll call that another secondary reflection there. And so I'm just going to reinforce that, fill it in a little bit more. Again, that's trying to honor the shapes of the design on the belt, but we want the primary reflection to live more on that slightly right side of center. Now I've just mixed in some ice yellow, and I'm going to just further increase those highlights. You can see where I'm placing them, being a little bit more selective. That's more of the secondary highlight on the right side, and then the secondary on the left side. And just trying to pick those out. The secondary reflections here will be dulled down in a later stage as well, but just trying to honor the main light reflections on the metal here. See a little picking out of the gold bejangles, the little parts down here, and then picking out metal bracers as well. And again, as I look back at this, I didn't follow the highlights perfectly with the steel, but just trying to think of the whole arm as a cylinder and highlight it accordingly. Now we're going to add in some yellow ink, shift the tones more to the yellow side, make it look a little bit more of a rich gold. Imagine this guy's got some money back home in the Empire before he set out on his quest. So he's got to have, fancy gold. It's not going to be any kind of muted gold. Once that dries, I'm just going to come back in with pure ice yellow and just ping those bright spots. Again, this is what sells the metal effect. Just that bright light, bright spot, and just ping it. Little goes a long way here. Just reinforcing it, adding a little bit more. Trying to really push the contrast, the dark to almost white here. And there you have it, non-metallic metal gold in 4 steps. Full disclosure here, I totally screwed this part up. I had in my mind a dark phthalo green with some nice highlights, and this is what I ended up with. It looks like mint. It's terrible. So I didn't want to go this way. So hard pivot. I'm thinking more neon. Yeah, that's better. And I didn't want it to overpower it, but it seemed like the best move. And if nothing else, it would pull the eye to our man Volkmar here. So the power source, or the inside, is ice yellow, and then just a couple coats of this fluorescent green, trying to shift it more to the yellow. And I think it turned out pretty well, but not really what I had in mind. I didn't want to distract everything to this, but I think it's a little cool effect, and just took that phthalo green and added ice yellow to it for highlights and more fluorescent back and forth until I was happy with the result. And then I come back with some phthalo green to define between the feathers a little bit. You can see me cutting those in. And then I come back with some ice yellow and phthalo green and highlight the edges of the feathers again, and then one more controlled pass with the fluorescent green. And yeah, I think it turned out alright. Has a good amount of contrast and seems to draw the eye to the area. And rather than show you every back and forth step, here is the final result. So a little more eye-catching, but it is a key point in the story, and you can see I've added a little pre-injury effect to it.